and thank you for tuning in once more to Red Couch Chronicles. Hi, I'm Danielle. This afternoon, I had the privilege of talking to one of my very close friends, and in our conversation, we both came to the conclusion of one of the most important principles that we, or I should say I, have ever realized in my life. And that principle was, what is for you is for you, meaning that whatever the Lord has planned for you is yours and can never be taken away. And as I got off the phone with her this afternoon, I started thinking about that very same premise in my life and how I have lived to see that very premise, that very principle played out as I moved from the Virgin Islands where I was and now residing here in Georgia, and how my teaching career has evolved throughout the years. And so if you will allow me to spend the next few moments with you, I'd just like to tell you a little story or share with you my testimony. I started teaching in 1995 back in the United States Virgin Islands, St. Croix, where I'm from. And the first ever teaching assignment that I got was teaching kindergarten. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that I was thrilled about getting that appointment. As a matter of fact, it was completely the opposite, and I was so very disappointed. No one in my family had, at that time, no one in my family had toddlers, babies, or even 5-year-olds for that instance. And so for me, dealing with 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, teaching them how to read, teaching them how to take care of themselves, teaching them hygiene, being around 5-year-olds who they do have the tendency to whine a bit, I had no clue. And so when I found out that kindergarten was going to be my placement for that year, I kid you not, I went home, I cried my eyes out, and I wondered, Lord, is this really what you have called me to do? Long story short, suffice it to say, I spent 4 years teaching kindergarten. And by the time those 4 years were finished, I had become known as one of the better kindergarten teachers in my school. Now, fast forward a few years after that, teaching, having the opportunity to teach a first, second, and third grade multi-age classroom, having the opportunity to work in my schools or be a co-chair in my school's professional development team, having the opportunity to do many things as I went on throughout my career, talking to students who went through their student teaching courses, taking on student teachers even within my classroom, presenting to students at the university, presenting to other teachers in other schools. Within 10 years, I would say, if I remember correctly, yes, 1995 to 2005, my career blossomed in the Virgin Islands where I was. And I am of the belief that had I not left St. Croix in 2006 when I did, I probably would have been a principal by now, or at least an assistant principal. Now, this is not to say I got there on my own. This is not to say that I'm bragging, because definitely I'm not. I was very privileged to have over me many mentors. I can remember one of my principals, Dr. Plaskett, an assistant principal, Miss Jewel Brathwaite, another principal, Maria Encarnacion, a good friend of mine, Joanna, and there were many people, Helena, I remember, who stood behind me and made sure that as my career progressed, and as the years rather of my career progressed, so did I. And so for the many opportunities that they gave me and for the many challenges that they presented to me, I was grateful. Now, in 2006, when I moved here, and just so that I can paint a picture for you, I was a big fish in the Virgin Islands, getting ready now, leaving the little pond, big fish in little pond, St. Croix Virgin Islands, getting ready to become a little fish in the big pond of the state of Georgia, Gwinnett County Public School Systems, where I actually decided to work. And when I got the job in November of 2006. And of course, when I started working, I expected my success to be more of the same. And I worked my first year and I didn't really have much success. I had a difficult class of students, which is why, I picked up in the middle of the year. I teached there another year. Nothing seemed to be working in terms of being where I was back in the Virgin Islands. I wasn't being asked to present. I wasn't giving opportunities to travel. Nothing was happening different. Okay, that's the second year, you said. The third year, fourth year, fifth year of being in Gwinnett County, I transferred to another school. Sixth year, seventh year, eighth year, ninth year. Nothing that I had been accustomed to doing in St. Croix, to being that go-to person, to being the one that's being sent to conferences, to being that one who other teachers would come to and ask questions, to being that one who had the high test scores. Nothing was working. And so, as you can imagine, I was getting a bit disenfranchised and even more so worried about my future in the field of education. And I kid you not, I went home many nights and cried myself to sleep. And I asked that question many a night here in Georgia, that I asked myself on that very first night that I started teaching. Lord, is this really what you want me to do? Why are no doors being opened to me? Why am I still in the classroom, with 6 years of teaching, 7 years of teaching here in Gwinnett? Why are there just no opportunities for me? Why am I not progressing as fast as I was when I was home? And so it was a hard road for me to travel. It was a long road for me to travel. As you can imagine, there were many questions, many insecurities. I started to have self-esteem issues. I started to wonder, should I quit? Should I walk away from this? Should I find something else to do? Lord, tell me, what am I supposed to do? And the more I asked of him, it's almost like this, and I've heard this from my friend Valerie. Be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it. If you pray for patience, God is going to give you something to wait on. He's going to give you an opportunity to be patient. And so as I went through that time, and I call it now my time in the wilderness in Gwinnett County Schools, and deciding what to do. God, give me a word. If it's time to leave, I'll leave. If, there's an open door, you want me to do something else, I'll do it. If you need me to quit and, seek you for a year, I will do that. And no matter how I prayed, no matter how I looked for that open door, no matter how I waited for him to say, okay, you can resign now, take a year off, it never happened. And in a word, I just felt as though I was stuck. But moving until the latter years, I started to sit before him and wonder, okay, God, I've been talking to you about this and what it is that you would have me to do. I have not really been listening as much as I should. And once I started to listen, oh my gosh, he started to pour out. And what I started to realize was, one, in as much as I thought that I was being a failure, I really wasn't. In as much as I thought nothing was happening, a lot was happening. In as much as I thought those years that I was in the wilderness and I was just stuck in a classroom with 4 walls and nothing was changing in my career, indeed, he was working. And what I realized was that He had given me that time to sit back and watch, to observe not only examples, but non-examples. He might say to me, you may want to do something like this, or you definitely do not want to do that. He might say to me, you might want to cleave to that person. You can learn a lot from this person. Or he might say, definitely leave that one alone. You see, what he was doing during that time was teaching my hands how to battle. He was training me in that season because I didn't know what he had planned. But guess what? He always knew. And so even though I was going through this drought in my career, even though I felt disillusioned and disenfranchised and not wanted, and Lord, nobody's seeing me, and I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels and my hamster on the wheel and nothing is happening and I'm not going anywhere. And yes, I love my students, and yes, I love my parents, and yes, I enjoy their company. But Lord, when is it going to be my turn? And I realized then, and through all of the sleepless nights and the crying myself to sleep, that, like I said, one, he was training my hands for war, training my fingers for battle, and I will leave these verses in the comment sections below. And two, he was with me, that I was never alone. And Isaiah 43:2 says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. And I say that in hindsight, thinking about the many instances that I was called into the principal's office. Can we discuss this? Or a parent called me and this is what he or she had to say. I can think about the many times when I know for sure one time I had a parent who was dissatisfied with something and she actually went to the county office. I can think about the times, like I've said before, I would cry myself to sleep. I can think about the many times when I felt so overwhelmed. I was coming in early and I was staying late and I would still not get caught up in my work. Lord, Lord, where are you? But he was there and he was saying all that time, I am with you. You will not be run over. You will not be set afire. The waves will not wash you away. Just watch and learn and see. Now, fast forward to last year. And this is where I'm getting to my point. What is for you is for you. And last year, it was amazing how every single step that I took last year after being in the wilderness, training my hands how to war, training my fingers how to battle, for each of those years, it seemed like last year, school year 2015, 2016, every step that I made was the right one. Every idea that I had was innovative. Every interaction that I had with my students and their parents meant so much more. Relationships with my colleagues blossomed. Opportunities were coming and landing in my lap faster at times that I could even say yes to. Travel opportunities arose. Speaking opportunities arose. All those years when I thought that my administrators weren't seeing me, all of a sudden now, Miss Walcott this, Miss Walcott that, oh my gosh, you're doing such a wonderful job. We appreciate you having here. We're thankful that you're at our school. The veil had been lifted. And the promise that he had made, for I know the plans I have for you, were starting to come to fruition last year. And I said started because guess what? He isn't finished with me yet. There is still more opportunities for me. There is still growth for me in this career. And I have been teaching now for 22 years. Mind you, I could retire. But the Lord is saying to me, not yet. Because there is so much more. And so when I think about all those years that I could have manipulated situations, that I could have complained others to administrators, seeming to trying to cut them down to make myself look better. When I think about all the times when I could have been a rat and say, well, this is what you see, administrator such and such, because this is what they do in front of you, but really and truly you don't want to know what they're doing behind your back. Again, to make myself look better, to posture myself, to put myself in a better light. All of those years when I could have done that, but instead I cried out and I said, Lord, what would you have me do? Show me. And even though I was in that wilderness for 8 years, 8 long years. And I would love to say that I was in the wilderness and I was happy and it was kumbaya, me and the Lord. No. I went through that wilderness experience in my career, kicking and screaming and hollering and snotting, Lord, if this is the way you're going to treat me, let me go back to Egypt. Let me pack my bags and go back to the Virgin Islands. Let me pack up my kids and let me go where I'm known. Let me be that big fish, Lord, in a small pond, because I know what I had there. I don't necessarily know where you're leading me here, which is what the Israelites themselves did. And I believe because I did not try to make my own way, and even though I was not really a happy camper, he honored the fact that I sought him, and he honored the fact that I sought him with clean hands. And so now when I think about one of my favorite life verses, and I'll have to tell you the story about how that verse became my life verse in another video, of course. But when I think about the scripture, Jeremiah 29:11-14, I am amazed at just how God keeps his promises. So allow me to share this with you. Jeremiah 29:11-14 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back from captivity. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I have banished you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile." In this particular instance, he had banished me from moving up the education ladder too fast, maybe. Maybe I was getting a little too cocky in my britches. Maybe I was thinking that it was all me and I was making these swift paces on my own merit. And maybe he just figured, hey, I have to slow her down. I have to slow her down lest she falls because of her pride and her haughtiness. And like I said, kicking and screaming, no less. But God was faithful. And so I just want to encourage you. Do not be that person, that divisive person who gossips, who slanders, who talks about others, who tries to make themselves look bigger than they actually are, more important. Those who are filled with their self-importance, be not that person, but instead cry out, Lord, you know what you have created me to do. You know what you have placed in my heart to do. You know the many things that I would like to do. Train my hands for war, Lord, and teach my fingers how to battle. Promise me, Father, that though the waters rush in, I will not be swept away. Though I walk through the fire, Lord, I will not be consumed. Though I am overwhelmed, Father, let me know that you are with me, and trust that He knows the plans that He has for you. And it doesn't matter what anyone says, what anyone thinks. It doesn't matter how fast you think it should happen, who sees, who does not see. God's word does not come back to Him void. What is for you is for you, and no one can take it away. And so I just want to bless you with that encouragement this evening and wish you all the best as you work in excellence unto the Lord and not as to unto man. Thank you so very much for watching. This has been Danielle, Red Couch Chronicles. Please be sure to subscribe. Hit me up in the comment sections below. I would like to hear from you. Until next time, I will be here on this red couch waiting to see you again soon.